Holly, Griswold. We also have Mr. Eustace and Mr. Brooks.
All right, Jim, you already standing on that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a lot of minutes to approve. Can we do a blanket on that, or I do?
Yes.
And blanket. So we have minutes of September 6th, 10 o'clock, minutes of September 6th, 10:30, the minutes from September 20th at 9 a.m., and the minutes of September 21st at 9 a.m. Motion, second? Second. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next up, we have some informational items, and we're going to get into the budget discussion. If everybody had a chance to look at the questions and answers there, I think we can go over those when we get to the budget study. It should be giving you some good information of the questions that were asked and the format that they were asked. So we'll do that in a bit. So old business, first thing we have up is the court security and sheriff fee study. Mr. Contra. Morning. Yeah, I don't think you need to go over it totally, just additional information that you
What
gave
was
us.
requested?
Yeah.
Last month, the board requested that they look at the court security fee that was presented in the, they took out the costs of, where we were doing the accounting and other things like that, so the overhead costs. So all we have in there now is just basically the staff cost and the cost to replace metal detectors and handheld metal detectors. So your fees went from $47 down to $46. Dropped that at $1. Any other questions?
Yes, Jim.
This fee, this fee would only be applicable to criminal cases, correct? Not civil cases.
I believe they're in there as civil cases also. The law states exactly what we can and cannot charge for. If the board wanted to,
I guess I want to make sure that it's applicable both to civil and criminal cases. And the reason is because, you know, one side or the other shouldn't burden all the cost. I mean, if it's done across the board for every case that goes through the common, okay. But if it's not, then I think you have to do proportionately charge the fee. So if there's $100 worth of cost, and this is assuming the number of cases are 50-50, you can't say, well, 50% is going to pay 100% of the cost. I mean, I just want to bring that, when you're applying the fee, it does make a difference how you apply that cost. So, does everyone kind of understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
on page 3 of the old report, the law, state law, it's a criminal, local ordinance, county ordinance, traffic, and conservation cases. Such fee will be assessed against the defendant upon a plea of guilty.
So civil cases such as liability lawsuits, divorces, they would not apply. I'm asking the question. I'd like to see exactly.
Mary's looking diligent to deal with this.
And like pro bono, you know, like,
Yeah.
not pro se.
Well, I guess what I just want to get across is that it has to be, if we would approve the fee, I think that it has to be proportionally administered. So one sector of the courts isn't paying more than another, I guess.
Or all.
Or not being on all the burden, for all the costs.
It has to be paid in all civil cases by each party when they make their first filing. So both plaintiff and defense has to pay the fee. And then the criminal cases where the defendants are found guilty, innocent people are not going to be paying their fee.
Okay.
That's what I thought too. And it's not assessed on traffic, I don't think.
No,
It is assessed on traffic?
well,
Is it? Right, you said right.
Yeah, it is, transit and conservation fees. So
Okay.
local ordinance, county ordinance, traffic conservation fees. But again, it's upon a plea of guilty or a finding of guilty. So if you're found not guilty or not liable, you won't be charged a fee. So it's not when they file paper or pleadings, it's not until the judgment is actually entered.
Okay? Yeah, Jim?
Mary, and the judge, does the judge have discretion whether he's gonna apply all the costs?
They usually do, yeah.
I mean, the other thing, the other part is I'm just gonna take a minor traffic ticket. I'm not talking about somebody going 30 miles over the speed limit, you know, somebody didn't make quite a complete stop, you know, I mean, they stopped, they didn't make quite a, you know, I mean, how much are we gonna fine this person, you know?
Right.
For a minor traffic ticket, you know, all of a sudden it's $400 for $500 for a minor traffic ticket. I mean, I think you also have to consider, does it create a burden on some people? Because then what happens, they can't pay the fine and then it just snowballs from there. You know, and all of a sudden they've lost their license forever because they didn't pay the fine. And it just goes on and on and on, it just gets worse for a person.
And the judges are usually sensitive to that.
Yeah, I would hope
Reluctant
so.
to impose all fees when you are dealing with situations like that. I think you'll find in a lot of traffic cases, they don't impose all of these.
maybe I was reading the wrong section. It was reading the whole law, not the new law, but it talked about the total assessment at $150 in all minor traffic cases. So Jim, I think that would be the max, $150. I don't.
You get everything on top of that, it could be.
No, but
You're saying with
That's-
that.
the total assessment.
Total could only be on.
Yeah, can only be 150, and unless, again, I'm not as familiar with the legalese that you sometimes have to read through, but that's what it seemed like to me, that could be the max. And that's Supreme Court Rule 529.
Also, if there's no court appearance, if they mail their ticket in, there is no court. There is no fee for them. So when they appear in court.
Pay the tickets.
Okay.
Good incentive just to say, plead guilty. Whether you're innocent or not.
Yeah,
And if you're
time
really
off
not
work,
using
yeah,
the
it is.
courthouse if you mail in the fee.
Right.
So-
Right. All right? Committee? We want to move forward with the fee.
What exactly are you gonna apply? The whole amount?
What was the max we can apply? Again?
Maximum, it dropped down to $46. There's also, it dropped down to $46. There were also some other fees, keep in mind, that we were looking at for foreclosures, for jail fees. So if you, well, like I said, put a schedule
Yes,
together,
why don't you
then
put a-
you
why
can
don't you put a
pass this till
schedule?
next month.
Yeah, put a schedule for next month. Give us that range on the fee, and then we can kind of look at it. Jim?
I'm just gonna throw out my view. Just because you can justify $46 doesn't mean you should go to $46. I would have a hard time putting an additional, I'm gonna round it off to $45, say an additional $45 on these cases, I just would. You know, people, even those who use the courthouse, those who are charged with something are gonna use it for a civil matter. They do pay taxes, and taxes do support that system. It's not a fee-based system. And certainly you'd like to offset fees versus real estate taxes, but we haven't been in a situation where we've had to raise real estate taxes for the courthouse. So I would say just keep in mind that when we're going to apply something, it doesn't have to be the total $45. I think that's a little rough in some cases. The other part is in these criminal cases where people are found guilty, most of them don't have any money. They never pay it anyway, right? I mean, that's,
But particularly the felons who get.
yeah, and if they go to jail, they're certainly not paying it.
They typically are not going to.
So let's keep in mind, you're really, I think, hitting people who have minor offenses. There seems to be a cap on traffic. There's another alternative for traffic is do by mail or going into court, in the courthouse is paying it, circuit court. So let's keep in mind that, you know, you're probably hitting a fairly small group who's actually going to pay it. So I'm just throwing that out. I don't know if the sheriff's department's going to recommend that they take the full amount, or if you're going to look at.
We're not recommending any amount. That's going to be.
You're not recommending any amount.
That's up to
You're
the
just
board.
saying, here's the cost.
We were allowed to do a study per state law, so
Okay.
we'd be remiss if we didn't bring that to you and show you exactly what those costs are for the future, and then it's going to be up to the board to decide what they want to do, because some of these fees are costing, or some of these services are costing us more than
You know,
we are
so maybe
collecting.
I'm one of these people that's like in a time warp, I don't know, I happen to think $50 is still a lot of money. You know, people have to work hard to make $50, you know?
So based on that, if you can just give us a simple form showing the range that can be charged and the dollar amount that we figured as the cost, we have all the backup already, $46, or this is your cost that we figured. But give us the range on that one, the same thing with the other fees, and then we can kind of all take a look at it, and then next month we can come back and decide. Yes, Steve?
Yeah, we are charging a fee right now.
$25.
Yeah, that's the maximum you can charge without doing a cost
That's
study.
correct.
Right?
That's what all
So we're
counties are
just
charging.
really looking at what the increase would be. And based on the study, you're saying we can increase it to $46 for the security, and then there's an additional jail fee. So I guess could you make your analysis in that fashion too, so we can show it's just the increase that we're talking about?
Sure, actually, in the study, it actually shows what we are charging and what you recommend, so I don't know how much more.
Just
detail.
summarizing what's in the study, the study is great, so
Sure.
it's a lot of wording.
Who do you want to?
And then are we charging the $25 now on the traffic?
I believe, yes, we are.
Okay. And I wouldn't want to raise the traffic at all myself. I don't know, Jim, I don't think it's the same
I don't
thing.
think you can pick and choose.
I think you can, can't you?
I don't think we can, but I will look at that.
Okay, we're gonna get limited to the 150 anyway in the traffic, so. Anyway, you check into that, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah?
Are you gonna bring the jail fee?
We'll bring them all to you at once if you like.
Okay, you're gonna bring it all at once, okay. Because that's enough, so that'd be where you would collect the fee up front versus on the back end, correct?
We had a discussion, Mary and I, we're in discussion about when to collect the fee and when not to collect that fee. Right now it goes to the circuit clerk and it gets totaled at the end, and then the fees get taken out that way.
So you're just gonna bring forward the increase that fee could be,
Correct.
Okay.
And just a comment on, I believe, traffic court, I don't have the statistics, probably your number one highest volume court in that courthouse.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks. See you next month. All right, next up is the designation creation of funds for proceeds, fund for proceeds of Public Act 99-0697. So what we're trying to do is create a special fund that will hold exclusively the funds that are coming in. The circuit clerk started collecting as of July, August this year. And then at a later date, we'll determine after we figure it all out how we're going to expend those funds.
Can you remind me, what was this fee for? Is this just an increase, the increase that we did?
What's the full description?
It was, the creation of the funds were pursuant to the Public Act 99-0697, and the circuit clerk's office brought forth a request as to where they want the designation of those funds. And originally, we had talked of, well, there wasn't much of a discussion, but Julie McCabe-Sturman came and she has a special fund, but this is, we have the ability to create another fund, for those proceeds to go in. We're gonna make a determination what we're gonna do with those at a later date.
Right, we need to
So-
use them for drug education.
But we do need to create a special fund for that, for Pam's office to place those proceeds in. So staff will meet again, we'll make recommendations. As of right now, we do need to create a fund for those funds to go in.
Okay. Motion? Move? Second, all in favor? Motion carried, thank you.
After we pass the budget, probably in January, we'll come back and make those recommendations. Once we get a couple months of revenues and do a little research on what we can do with those funds.
Have you started getting any of the funds yet?
The clerk's office has started collecting,
Yeah.
she hasn't, we haven't given her a fund to place them in, so this would do that for her.
Okay.
So that's a resolution then?
Yep.
Yes.
Next up on our old business, we had discussion record management system. Michael,
Morning.
how are you? I think last time we tasked you with bringing some references of the
Yes.
provider.
So far, we've got.
That told you, Michael.
Star.
Star.
There we
There
go.
we go.
So far, we have one reference. After speaking with that reference, Mike Shea requested additional parameters for the discussion. So it slowed me down a little bit on getting the others. I've got to interview another one today, this afternoon. We have another one scheduled for the 10th, so yes, I'll be here until with the first reference was with the State of Oregon's director of the archive division. What was different than, say, our implementation is that theirs is a cloud-based system that's used by over 40 agencies throughout the state. It's open to the state departments as well as local government. So it's implemented, and the back end of it is taken care of by a third party, where they take care of the software aspects of it, the setup of it, and that the other entity takes care of the hardware. So it's different than our setup would be. Very positive feedback on the system. She basically confirmed what I already found out, which is that it's the only system that's out of the box, meets most of your records requirements, just out of the box. They use it for records access, public records requests, workflow. They said that it was very robust for that, and easily integratable with the systems that they've come in contact with. So when you take that into consideration, that's referring to state and local entities, that's pretty impressive. The city of Portland uses their space management, and other entities that use the city of Portland. They said that the main challenges were not the software or the implementation. It was simply getting people to understand the need for records retention to be applied to their records. And once that was sort of hashed out with the people that wanted to come on board, the access, the rate of access, the speed and ease of it actually sells the product. Today, I'll be talking with the business systems analyst of the city of Portland, who's, I guess, part of the auditor's department. They handle the records there for oversee the process. On the 10th, I'll be talking to a large pharmaceutical company here in Chicago. Their system is server-based, locally server-based solution. All preliminary discussion has been extremely positive. So other than that, I don't see anything challenging yet. We're trying to set up a time with the Director of Records Management Services for the state of Michigan. So once I've got that done, then I think that we'll probably just stop there. Other than that, we've already received a preliminary contract and scope of work. So we're using that Phil Mock, and the state's attorney's already run over everything that's in it, seems in order. We have a couple things that we'd like to change and start working through that and then working on the price. So that's really where we're at. I wish we'd had more of the references ready for you.
All right, so you have one today, you have one on the 10th,
And then we're still trying to, it's taken a while just to the right people to speak to. We have the guy from the state of Michigan as soon as we can, so he still hasn't responded. So.
Jim, do you think we can get this on executive so we can hear the next 2 recommendations and then be done with the recommendations for this month?
Just make a note.
Yeah, then
Put it on, you want to do it this Thursday? or-
No, it'll be next because the 10th is next Monday.
We'll put it on
So
next Thursday.
put it on next Thursday. If you come back, Michael, and just tell us
Okay.
what they said, and if those sound good, then we can kind of finish the negotiation.
Okay. Any other questions?
Good. All right, thank you. Next up is discussion regarding the capital maintenance reserve fund for the public safety complex.
Kathy, before,
For the public safety, I wasn't speaking on that
oh,
one.
wait,
There's 2 items.
Yeah.
oh, sorry, I combined those, sorry, too soon.
Yeah, I mean, really, all we were gonna do is just talk about the fact that we're gonna create a reserve fund, right? So, and I think we're looking at more than just the public safety complex. We're talking about creating one reserve fund that, for all capital needs. Nick, if you want to touch base on that.
Yeah, before Nick talks,
Yeah.
I mean, Mary, this will be more for you. I mean, do we have the ability to set up designated funds for like certain buildings? To say, you know, this is, and the reason I'm asking is, even if it's one fund, to identify, this is the bill, this is where it's to be used. Because I do think that's important for a number of reasons. First, you know, you're reserving for a particular building. You can do that with some predictability of when you're going to have like replacements of HVAC systems and so forth. But I would like to do that if we can. But if we can't, we just have to make an internal note.
I mean, I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but I guess my concern would be if you publish it in a certain fund, if you then need those funds, something in another building catastrophically happens, I'm not sure you would be able to then use them. So I think you lose a lot of flexibility if you do that.
Well,
but,
you would.
I can look into whether or not you can identify it for certain buildings, but I guess I'm inclined to think, I mean, certainly you'd only be able to do it for 1 year at a time. And
Well,
every time you pass the budget, that would be open to change, and as it always
Right.
is, as it always is.
I mean, it could always be changed at budget time, I suppose, but you take like the law enforcement agency. Well, we also have renters in there that are paying rent, and, you know, part of our, I think, cost to them would be, you know, just the maintenance reserve for replacement and maintenance. Does that make a difference? And I'm bringing one other, you know, and I'm going to use kind of the Public Building Commission model. One of the reasons the Public Building Commission, commissions, in our case, our commission also, one of the reasons they do maintenance reserves is to protect the bondholders.
Right.
You know, I don't think our approach would be much different. That, you know, part of what we're doing is we're protecting the bondholders. And certainly that'll play a big role on our future ratings for our costs. So that's the other reason I'm bringing up. If we tied it to a particular bond issue, and then said after that bond issue is done, then it's open. But this is to also show the investors, or the bond buyers in Little County, and the rating agencies, that we take a very, I think, proactive and conservative approach to protecting their investment. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there too.
Okay.
Okay. And in the end, they might say it don't matter, maybe everybody just wants to throw one big pot. But I'm just pointing some of these things out because it does have an effect, I think,
And And you can always have the supporting material indicating your projections
For each
life.
individual.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah.
expected life for the various mechanicals in each building and when you expect that they will need to be replaced.
Yes.
Which we definitely should have on
We should be doing
new
that.
buildings. We're gonna be definitely getting that kind of stuff from our commissioning agents. Those kinds of replacement cost and replacement timing.
Well, that would be part of the capital fund presentation that I'm going to talk about. And item 7 was the creation and how it was going to be funded, and that we would have a specific schedule done to show finance and capital improvements and executive when we're going to need these, anticipated equipment replacements, so we could forecast for it.
Okay.
And we are going to talk about later about, which we haven't done, about actual facility management systems.
Right.
Which we haven't done in the past. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, which will also help us update what we're
Correct.
talking about on a yearly
Yeah.
basis, so we know
Yeah.
exactly where we're at. Nick?
I guess I was confused a little on the agenda too, because there's two items that are kind of similar.
There's a lot of
I know
similar.
Kathy's, and I'm not aware of what, all the details of what she's working on, so I'll be interested to hear, but I guess specifically what number 4 is, we wanted to ask some questions of the board, just to get your perspective, is, well, when we've talked about this loosely before, one question is it site-specific? And maybe this goes to Mary's point of, I think it should be site-specific. We can track those dollars coming in somehow. And so, for example, let's just use the sheriff's facility, because that's the next new building we're going to have. That is, and especially because that has lease payments, what Mr. Moose was just talking about. We're telling those folks that we're going to set up a maintenance fund. So it's not that we're absolutely positively held to that, but we're demonstrating to them we're good landlords and that we're going to have a fund ready to replace key pieces of equipment. So, and I think that way we can say to them on a yearly basis or when we renew their lease, we've set aside this money. When a HVAC unit breaks, a boiler breaks, a generator breaks, we're covered. And it may not cover it all, but at least we've got a starting point. So if it's $5 million and we have $3.5 million, we're $3.5 million there or something like that. But, so I guess the questions I have for you, and I'm not sure people are going to have answers to, is one, is it site-specific? We would recommend probably to be site-specific, especially because we've got 2 major buildings, the sheriff and the courthouse. Number 2, we were thinking of taking, and we'd have to agree to a list of these key components. So again, HVAC, generators, maybe a roof costs, or other key things that are going to be 15, 20-year lifetimes, or whatever the time frame is. Set those out, divide that by the 20 years, let's just say, and then we were thinking of getting to a per square footage number. So we were just playing with some numbers. It ended up being like $1.50, $1.75 a square foot for just as a guesstimate. But then for the sheriff's facility, since we have 3 different entities, the sheriff, which is us, the dispatch, which is partially us, and then the ETSB, which is a separate entity in all candor, it's like then we prorate it to them, so they're all paying a portion. So everybody's sharing, because that was one of the questions I got when we were negotiating the ETSB lease. That's great that you're going to do that. Are we paying for the whole building, or are you going to make everybody pay? And we said, if we're going to do this, we're probably going to do it shared by everybody.
And I think the last time, the last capital meeting, we talked to Mike Wolf, our commissioning agent, about helping us develop that. Because there's going to be major systems like boilers and stuff that we just went through. Those are the main things that we're going to be worried about, boilers or roof.
Parking lots, by the way.
Parking
Well,
lot.
I took that on my list, too.
It's not about the doorknob that breaks off and that
Right.
kind of stuff. We're talking about systems. So,
Large,
and we asked them as part of their thing to help develop, and this may be what Kathy's doing too, is developing what those systems are going to be that we need to provide for, that are going to hit us hard once they're big. So, yeah, I think we got a process. Mary, obviously, you've got some stuff to do for us now to figure out how we can do that. It's one fund and it's line item that we can do that, but
The one question that I've heard come up before is, I think we are restricted. We cannot use bond proceeds for this because bonds proceeds are a certain time frame.
Right.
So this would be a commitment by the county each year to either take money out of our corporate budget or take money from revenues that we're collecting for leases. And the 2 I'm thinking of that are current are the ETSB lease, we figured that into that cost that we negotiated. And then the dispatch center, which we're hoping to get a lease in place soon, that would have a cost built into that. But I think it can be done. It's just an accounting thing of how much, and we'll track it by building. So, because I would say we start with the sheriff and the courthouse, and then we can roll it back to include our existing buildings that we start, if we want to do that, start putting money aside for long-term maintenance.
It's just that the new buildings will be easy enough because we know what the system is. The commissioning agent will be able to identify it for us, what's our lifespan, what's our cost. We can figure it out. Don,
Yeah, I was just, during one of the capital meetings, when this discussion came up, I suggested that we do an analysis of all the buildings, to have one common fund. We can always earmark out what we think the costs are per building for charging tenants or whatever, but you don't start an insurance company and insure one person. You need a way to spread this thing out over a bigger area than having just one building in one fund, I feel.
But we do have to have Mary look at if we can.
And we do have tenants.
Well, and the challenge, I think,
I understand that, but we can identify what we think that cost is per building. But if we've got a bigger fund that's spread over system-wide, that'll help us take in contingencies a little bit better if something comes up than if we just have it all earmarked into one spot and something happens. Say we've got it all earmarked in one building, something happens in another building, and we can't spread that money over to take care of the other problem. I think that's short-sighted.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of this right now.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
The challenge of that, though, is, it's a policy decision. You can dump it all into one fund and use it for anything, but I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say to ETSB, for example, or the dispatch centers, you're reserving this fund, but then we're going to take that money and go spend it in the health department. I don't think that's, I mean, they could be in the same fund, but they're line item. And now, because we're going to ultimately, if something breaks in one of our facilities, we've got to pay for it. So it's just whether we take it from this fund or if we take it from our capital fund. But
or we can interpret it. We can interpret that as a maintenance fund being the fund that's under the direction of the building maintenance manager. Like all our maintenance managers have funds to address incidents in a building. So part of a commercial building would take in the tenant's rent and allocate 2.5% of that to go to a replacement fund. So we can say, okay, that it could be a formula that's used, and that would fund our building staff, our maintenance staff, our maintenance manager, and have the money in place for that building to get its regular maintenance just like everybody else under that maintenance manager. What I talked with staff regarding was an overall comprehensive fund for the capital equipment replacement. I think they're two different things.
Yeah, I think we're talking about is equipment, not about staff.
Okay.
Infrastructure, right. We're not talking about operational costs.
We're
But not
looking
for
at
staff,
it.
but for education of staff.
We're looking
Right.
at it, we're
Took it a
looking at a
step further.
boiler that's gonna last 20 years, and when 20 years happens and it's $500,000, now all of a sudden we're going, we don't have $500,000 right now. But if we're accumulating some of that over that period of time, we're preparing for the replacement of that unit through its useful life. Maybe a little, so say it lasts 15 years and we only have 3/4 of the money, at least we have 3/4 of the money, rather than waiting until something goes down and we're looking through contingencies to find out what the money's in.
So, well, when I met with staff on the 22nd of September, it was Melissa Johansson, Karen Hennessy, Rashawn Howard, Dean Olson, Samantha Dreamer, and I, and we came up with the concept, can this fund be formed? And that's what we were working at. So we identified capital equipment at this time as HVAC, lighting, building controls, equipment controls, hot water heater, building envelope, and elevators. We thought there may be three means of funding this capital equipment replacement fund for existing buildings, and that would be from the incentives that we are hoping to earn through the Illinois Energy Now program. I just attended and spoke at their conference last week. The funds are secured. They've been established. It cannot be used for any other measure except for these grants and incentives. And there's 2 years of money there. And I'm applying for everything because they have to use this money by the end of their fiscal year 2017. So we're trying to do several things right now, and whatever we receive from that would go into this capital equipment replacement
But are those
fund.
grants, are we obligated to spend that money in a certain amount of time?
No.
That's state
We've
money.
already spent it.
State money?
It's ratepayer funded money.
But it's through the state.
No, well, it's
Or is it
through,
directly through the utility?
it's through the utilities, and it's given to public sector through a state-run agency called Illinois Energy Now.
Right.
And so, no, we've done programs. I have applications in for the HVAC and hot water system for River Valley. And we qualified for over $130,000 in incentives. I have an application in for the hot water, domestic hot water heater for ADF. I'm going to get all the equipment specs for the new compressors and the new condensers at EMCO and the new lighting, send that in. Whatever we've done over the last 6 months, I'm sending in for.
Well, that I get, but that's not like taking a pot of money and saying, 20 years from now, this is gonna cost me $500,000. So I'm gonna put $1 away every day, and then 20 years from now, I'm gonna have enough money to
Well-
buy it. So that's.
Well, we're getting there. I got 3 meets. Okay, so that was number one. Number two is, we have building maintenance managers that are incorporating energy usage, energy cost savings right now. And what we've earned so far through these measures is about $42,000, and that was done with the adult detention facility. We verified those. We had a retro commissioning report done in 2015, and one of the measures they said was, hey, turn back the temperature set points on our heating system, okay? And so we've earned, so far verified, $37,000 in cost savings, one measure. Another measure was evaporation credit through the city of Joliet. We've gotten our first credit for a 3-month period of $4,200. So we've earned that. So this is a simple application to that fund. And then my last recommendation for funding a capital equipment replacement fund would be to get the capital equipment replacement schedule done for our existing buildings. I'm attempting to get that done for free through CDAC. They've not done a report like this, but they're very familiar. They've been to so many of our buildings. We do the measures that they suggest, and we do see cost savings, so we're a strong candidate to get that done through their engineers. But another opportunity would be our new construction engineer that's coming in to say, okay, I mean, they'll have the skills and they'll have the ability, and Samantha and I can help them with setting schedules. We have all our benchmarking for all our utilities, for our county buildings. We have equipment usage data for all our county buildings. We would give that to the engineer to get this report done. And then based on a combination of private and public sector, looking at, okay, 2.5% based on your income, but we're government, I don't want to do that on taxes. Let's take that total cost and contribute 2.5% per year. This is not going to be a giant fund until we start getting the big incentives in, but at least we can start it. And that's its intended goal. But the bigger goal would be to have that equipment replacement report done so we know next year Sunny Hills boilers are going to go or whatever, and we can prepare for that.
Right, so, and again, on the new buildings, I think we've already tasked the commissioning agent with doing that, so, you know, working together with them, we should have that nailed.
Right.
So they're gonna have all that stuff, they know the exact equipment cost, the projected cost 20 years from now, all of that stuff, so that'll be solid. Yeah, going back on these buildings, we need to do that, but.
And we have at least 7 energy assessments that were already performed on our bigger buildings. So even if it wasn't CDAC returning to us, our new engineer, we can say, okay, here, they have the date, equipment model, age, and then they have the correlating utility usage for everything in that building. We had that all done. So we can provide that information and assist in that report.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a couple things. You know, really, we don't have, almost all our buildings have been redone, with the exception perhaps of this building. And the nursing home is basically, a lot of it's been redone, so it'd be pretty easy to figure out that schedule. We could probably go as far as work, we had to do that based on the work that was done and the equipment that was put in. The Social Security building, we basically redid that. We can, here again, go back and ask Brian Cornwetter to, you know, maybe put something together for us. I mean, I think we're good there. The other, you know, the courthouse will be new. I mean, I wouldn't spend any money on the old courthouse. It's going to be gone. So we have the EMCO building, which has been also pretty much done, even though it's been done over a long period of time. I think that building's in pretty good shape. So I don't think necessarily get that we already have that work done with maybe, and I know work's been done on this building also, I just don't know there was any major renovations here.
New
like the
windows
others.
in the screen above.
Yes,
So
new windows.
that's-
So, and certainly, from an energy saving standpoint, from an operational standpoint, I think you've done a great job, and you'll continue to do that. The other thing I'm going to bring up is when we talk about where is money coming from. You know, of course, Mel Rule, our former Public Works director, our former Public Building Commission director, you know, he was always pretty conservative. Always asked more for maintenance than really was probably necessary. And in the Juvenile Detention Center, almost at River Valley, almost everything now has been redone. And there's still a substantial amount of money there. Millions of dollars, actually. The leases, the county has a lease, even though the bonds, typically when the bonds are paid for, there's no more lease. In this case, I don't know exactly why, I don't recall, but there was an extended maintenance lease for the county, even though our bonds have been paid for. But now Kankakee has also paid off their bonds. So I don't think it's been determined yet whether the county's going to continue. This is actually going to be, I think, to touch on this in capital improvements. So I'm going to bring it up now just to something to think about. So I'm not so sure those monies that are sitting or at the juvenile detention center, River Valley, is not going to be brought over for maybe some seed money for this fund. Might be a good idea. And I'm not sure that they're going to continue the lease. Now, I think that lease with the county is what, 1.6 million? Nick, I'm asking.
I don't know off the top of my head.
It's pretty high.
But Kankakee is, if they haven't, they're paying their final bond payment. And we've discussed previously that we need to that was set up in the original bond terms, that there was an extended lease period, but we've had conversations with Kankakee officials and they're interested in revisiting that. What direction we've heard from the board is we don't want to buy their share of this. We want them to stay as partners, but we can renegotiate that lease on a year-to-year basis for ongoing maintenance and operations with the county. But the funds that are in excess of that we don't need to keep in a reserve over there, I think should be looked at or could be looked at for reallocation to some other critical capital needs, and we've got them. We know we've got a list. So.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily. I would put that money in that maintenance reserve fund.
It could be a starting.
That would be the starting for the maintenance reserve fund. So you could start out with maybe $2 million in there, even though we might have sent the thing with Kankakee would have to be worked out. But my point is, I'm letting this committee know that there is potential money that already is out there, and I think it's great that you get these grants, but that's not gonna fund the reserve fund.
We can spend that money today.
Yeah. I'm just pointing out that, I
It'll help, yeah.
It'll help. But I want people to know you really have to establish something. If you think the replacement costs are gonna be, $5 million and amortize that $5 million over 20 years, or whatever the life is. And the commissioning agent can do that.
Right.
And when you start bringing in a facility management system, it could be extremely helpful also.
All right, so Mary's going to work on that part. We're going to work on with the older buildings and the commission agent, the newer buildings, kind of developing a sheet on each one so that we can see what our long-term costs will be for major systems installation.
The thing I think we need to do going forward, because I wasn't totally aware of this other meeting, is we need to integrate what Kathy and those guys have been talking about with Dave Tack and Mike Nicolini and the commission agent, because it sounds like they're on parallel tracks that aren't connected necessarily, so we need to make sure that's all.
Sounds good. All right, thank you both. Thank you. That kills two birds with one stone. All right, now, I think we have any other old business. We're on to new business. First up is the determination of the estimate of the annual aggregate levy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So in your packet, you have the estimated annual aggregate levy. And the numbers that you have is the recommended numbers by Larry. But since the budget has been presented, Rhonda gave updated numbers, which could get us about 1.8 million in new property, as opposed to 1.5 that was recommended in Larry's budget. That would be an additional 277,000, and that would change the rate from the 0.5990 to 0.6130.
Yeah, and I would just suggest that next year, when the budget is presented, that the numbers are double checked, because I knew this number 2 months ago, that it was 6.13 or 6.137, depending what was happening. All the information wasn't taken on here. I mean, it's a nice press release when you can say that you're going down 6%. That isn't actually the case. We're going down 3%, which is still great, and we're going down. But we are capturing all the new construction. And we'll be at a rate of 6.130 versus last year where we were at 0.6358.
Correct.
So, any other questions?
Can you repeat that number again, what it's going to be?
0.6130.
This is the estimated levy.
Still
Not the
estimate,
final.
right.
This is not the final levy. It's February, January?
April.
Any questions on that then? So this will be corrected to,
Yeah, so that will,
so we're really.
the actual will be for a board floor.
So we're really moving forward the numbers we talked about, Steve.
And then the additional revenue would then be put in capital as far as the expense?
Correct,
balance
wherever
it?
you decided.
Yeah, whatever we decide.
Okay.
Very reasonable. Yeah, we're looking at it, yeah. All right, move that forward. Motion.
Motion.
Moved in second by Jackie. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next up is a discussion of the Laraway Dispatch Center. Nick, is that you?
I'd love to talk about this. I guess I might defer to Mr. Roostis first, if he'd like to,
Well, all I can say is, I think that we're really trying to bring something forward for the entire Will County community. We've been ordered to consolidate by the state of Illinois, even though the ESTB is tasked with that. I think we've been a facilitator to give them space to do that. I believe because of the way that they're going about it, they're making it more difficult, I think, on themselves. But we're going to, my position is that we can just keep moving forward, and I would say to those communities, get on board. It's going to be a good thing. It's a good thing. And, don't squabble over a couple $100. Because we're moving, and hopefully people will move with us, but we're trying to make progress here.
So the only thing I would add to that is we had a leadership meeting, I believe it was last week, to discuss this topic, where we were and where we were going. And this is a compilation of a lot of different meetings, a lot of different discussions. We've had discussions with the 4 entities, that being the sheriff, Lincoln Way, Eastcom, and Romeoville. We've had staff level discussions supported by their leadership to begin working towards a final number. That was several months ago. So they've all been participating, even though they haven't formally signed IGAs and created a legal entity that we can sign an agreement with, because until they have that formalized entity, we can't formally sign a lease.
Right.
But that's important only because everyone should know that with their leadership's blessing, they've been working with us on the design of the building and also potential lease scenarios. So it's not like anybody's been kept out or we're just saying, here's what you're going to get. I know this board has gone, wrestled with, some members have different views of what we were given, but we've been working towards a vanilla building, basically, basic build-out. But then when we met with those staff that I was just referring to, we said, here's some costs that are above and beyond a basic build-out. And we identified, it's a little shy of 1.5 million. And that was the cost that we thought was their cost. We offered to amortize that over an extended period of time for free, basically, of free money, but they would pay that back to us with lease payments for that cost and ongoing maintenance, like we were, general maintenance.
Might point out though, 40% of the cost would be the sheriff's.
Building. So that's the other important thing for our board members to realize is any of this cost, 40%, let's just say is our cost. So, but it's plain and simple, it's a good deal. It's a great deal. You're not going to get it anywhere else. When they start, months ago when we were looking at alternatives from the ETSB level and this dispatch, they would have to find a site, do site work, build a new building, all kinds of other costs. The reason I think Will County took the lead on this was because we were already building a building. The incremental cost was not as great, and they have security, they had a parking lot, they had all those things. So based on Mr. Moose's comment, that leadership meeting and discussions I think many of us have had with members, that they are hopefully getting the message that we need to see some action so that we can proceed and know that there's a confidence that they're coming in. And so I spoke with the nominee for the director, is Brad Veerman. He couldn't be here today. He can come Thursday if we need him to. He understands that we want to press forward. And so the entities that are ready to commit, I think we're encouraging them to take some formal sign that we're moving towards an agreement, and that they can get an IGA signed among themselves so that they can formally negotiate and approve a lease with us. So
I think that one of the areas that I would like everyone to understand, and I think part of the difficulty has become, we talked in terms of dispatch centers, right? So we say, well, Lincoln Way dispatch, Eastcom, Romeoville will consolidate these dispatch centers. But when they do it internally, there's 30 communities involved. So now all 30 communities are going to sit there and negotiate. It'll never work, And I might also add, there's, everybody has the same vote, whether you're a community of 3,000 or a community of 50,000, everybody has the same say. So it's like, well, how's this ever going to work? So, the way I'd like to move forward is we negotiate with the dispatch centers. They should have representation on who's representing them in these negotiations. Rather than having 30 communities, that's their internal thing, but then they all start, kind of beating up each other, and then they all, not all, but then they start like beating up the county. It's like, well, wait a second. So I don't think that, we never approached it, and from my view, that we were going to go out there and negotiate with 30 communities. We were going to negotiate with those dispatch centers. That made sense. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
I mean, I think, Jim, I know where you're coming from, because there are a couple communities that are being a little bit, obviously, difficult.
Yeah.
But the dispatch centers are the ones that are negotiating with us. I mean, when I talk about the meeting, we had a specific meeting across the hall. Lincoln Way was represented. Eastcom was supposed to be represented. I think they canceled at the last minute, but Romeoville was there, and the sheriff was there. So they are the ones negotiating with us. The problem is, on the other side, the 30 that were meeting as a group, and the Forest Preserve was represented because they're a stakeholder in that. They're one of those 30. They've been meeting. That's where the problem is getting to a resolution. And part of the, to just try to keep this simple, the issue was some entities were saying, well, we're not going to sign on the dotted line to join the consolidated thing until we know what it's going to cost. I don't think there's been a delay on the county's part in telling them what the cost was. Originally we started off with a free building. but it's evolved to include the 1.5. So it's not completely free. It's 1.5 million plus a maintenance cost. That's the cost. But in addition to that, those entities have to determine operational costs, and they're going to pay their own utilities. That's for them to determine, not for us to determine. So all we can tell them is, we've got a space, we're building it to your liking, we didn't do it in a vacuum, we asked you to participate, they did. It's 1.5 million plus the operational cost yet to be determined. But that's not going to be that huge a cost. And you divide that over 20 years or on an annual basis among 30 entities, half or 40% of which is the county, it's a really small number.
It's $200 a month.
Great deal.
Take it and run.
Yeah, Mary, can I ask you a question? And it involves the IGAs. So do we have intergovernmental agreements with the dispatch centers or with 30 communities?
Well, I don't know that I don't know what structure the dispatch centers are. I mean, my understanding is that in some cases, they have simply got a contract with the communities to provide the service. So there's not an entity to contract with from the dispatcher perspective, if that's the case. And we would have to contract with the communities unless they create some other joint public entity.
Because you're right, some of these dispatch centers, they have the core of who operates it, who has a vote, and then they have contracted communities that come into their dispatch centers.
Right, so they wouldn't be able to enter into an agreement with, on behalf of those communities, and I'm not even certain that they would have the authority under their originating documentation to bind the communities, you know, that are part of the core. I mean, I'm not sure how those dispatch centers created themselves. Maybe they could. Maybe that
I think, well, it's not as complicated, I don't think, as that. Right now, the communities, let's take Lincoln Way, for example. They represent and they formed a legal entity that represents all the communities underneath them. They pay their bills through Lincoln Way. The entity that is formed through IGAs, which doesn't involve us, will be formed, that one entity. It'll be right now they're calling themselves the LCC. The LCC will sign a lease agreement just like the ETSB did with us. And we will have one bill that they pay to us. How they divvy up the cost among their, whatever their membership is, their
membership can come and go based on contractual agreements, but we're doing it with the big
one entity gets billed from us.
That was my actual question. What was the process when this was done elsewhere in the county? This is not the first consolidation. It's, I assume, not anybody's first rodeo. Our involvement is new, obviously, but I'm guessing when these other PSAPs,
So many communities are involved.
merged. Well, I mean, like they created that one out there. What is it in Plainfield? The big one, Westcon. I mean, there were multiple communities involved in that, I assume. So, you know, I'm sure they'll figure out what they're doing. And I just had one other question. What's the name of the dispatcher that's going to be in charge, you said, or that's tentatively going to be?
Brad Bierman is currently the director of Lincoln Way Dispatch. He was selected by the 30 entities to be the presumptive director. I mean, he doesn't have an organization officially yet, but he's going to be the director.
So the 30 of them are able to talk to each other and make decisions because they pick the director.
Still just us.
The rest of it will work itself
Let's take
out.
it through with the tussle.
Yeah.
The difference in this consolidation from other consolidations is this being forced by the state law. And that's where other consolidations were voluntary. This was a forced consolidation. And if you didn't consolidate, you don't get funding. So that's, I mean, there's a difference. And getting 4 major entities, or at least some are major, together, it isn't easy because you've got people who have existing staff and processes that are being merged together, but it's going to happen. So.
Chuck?
Mike, I thought these, Nick, you should know this. I thought these guys were actually creating bylaws now. Isn't that what part of the issues are? And so those bylaws would be what's bringing that group together, I would think, as a structure, would they not?
There is bylaws that are being created. I was misquoted in the paper. They haven't been approved yet, but they are creating bylaws, and that's I don't think there's major disagreements about that, but they are creating bylaws. They just haven't been approved yet, and that would govern that basically. Once they have their bylaws approved, I think it slides right into an approval of an IGA, and then it's just a matter of going through their individual governmental processes to approve the IGA.
Steve?
That's all I need.
The county board, our position is that no cities that want to get involved with it are excluded, is that correct? Yeah, so like Braidwood wants to be in, they're in, right?
Well, that's really up to the LCC. Once the LCC forms, that's going to be up to them.
I'm curious on the state law on this. I mean, how, you can't, if you're going to exclude somebody and they have no place to call home, you can't leave a community out there hanging in the wind. So whether this is something that gets addressed from a state level, or, you know, or do we have any ability to work with the communities rather than just kind of consoling them?
They'll figure it out.
Condoling them?
I don't know. From my perspective, no community should be
They can't be,
excluded.
we can't
No
exclude
community
anybody.
excluded. That doesn't mean, you know, that they're necessarily part of the group, doesn't mean they have a vote, but that could mean they're a contracted community. But I don't think any community in Will County should be excluded. And I think we should make that clear.
And shame on anybody that tries.
Even after they form their thing, there should be movement. As long as we have capacity to serve a community, Will County community, we shouldn't exclude them. Now, there could be a time when you get to the capacity and you wouldn't have the ability to bring somebody in. But as long as we have capacity, I don't think any community should be excluded. It's very often involved. It involved the 1936 softball team thing that they had, and they're still fighting with each other. You know, I mean, there's always that little bickering out there. Right?
Yeah, let's let them work out the bylaws and the details first, and then let's move to that. All right, anything else on that? Thank you. Keeping it moving. Transferring funds with the Sheriff's Courthouse security budget. Jerry, we're moving some $8,000 of supply money over to machinery. What do we get?
You need to buy another detector.
There's one second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
What are you buying?
Thank you, Jerry. Next up, transfer funds within the circuit court.
Awarding annual audit.
What? What I missed? Oh, the audit, right. Rita.
Rita had to step out for a bit
Okay,
over
Karen.
so I'll fill in. The purchasing director issued an RFP for audit services for the county. We reviewed all the submissions, and my recommendation is that we stay with the firm we're currently with, which is Baker Tilly. I get a 2-page recommendation that was included in your packet, so I can go through some of the highlights.
You're happy with it?
Motion?
I have a question.
Questions?
How long have we been with Baker Tilly?
They've done our audit for 6 years. There is no requirement to change audit firms. And just to pull out a couple of points from my recommendation, they do every Collin County in the state of New York. County finances are not the same as municipal finances. They're not the same as forest preserve districts. We're kind of a unique animal. They do everybody. They have the breadth of experience. The other counties they do in Illinois, I believe there's 8 of them altogether. They're the largest 15 counties in the state of Illinois, excluding Cook. So they have a unique set of skills that we are thrilled with.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because when you look at the diagram of the layout, they were the second highest one on there. There were 5 other companies that were less expensive.
Right. And they don't have the same experience.
The 5 lesser.
Yes. 2 of the 5 lower ones have some county experience. One of them is a county of 100,000 people. So again, not the size that we have or the complexity.
So you believe for the money that we're paying, we're giving the experience to back up the increase?
Yes. There's all kinds of value-added services that they provide. There is no group for county finance directors to meet. We can belong to GFOA. The GFOA, I'm the only county finance director that shows up at GFOA, so I have no one else to bounce things against. Baker set up a CFO roundtable. Quarterly, we meet, all the finance directors in Northern Illinois, they pay for that. it's been invaluable. So anytime we're gonna do something, I can shoot an email to all the finance, and they recognize that as a need we all have. So there is some value added on top of the 6 years of fabulous service they provided.
Jim?
I still see that.
I just wanted to point out also that there's some additional costs, soft costs, albeit, but there's costs involved in training new auditors. So there's a lot of time involved in that, and that savings that we would have by keeping the same auditor. And they have been very, very helpful.
Well, one of the other points that I made here is, we're talking about moving to a new ERP system, finance and HR. Who better to shepherd us through that process than the people that actually have their fingers in our books for 6 years? Bringing on a new firm, it takes them 3 years to understand how we do anything, and then to help us convert. I'm not sure that that's the best choice for us.
Jim?
And I agree about, they've been a great firm. They're very specialized towards counties. Many other auditing firms are not. They've done a great job. But, there is basically another policy that you change audit firms after X amount of years. I don't know if that's always a good policy, if you have a good firm. In the cases where we keep auditing firms for an extended period of time, I do think that you need to change the people who come in and do the audit. I mean, I think that would be a good practice. Not a professionalized, because now they don't, there's no relationships, there's no, So I do think that one of the criteria should be, not this year, certainly next year, is that they bring out different groups.
Do you think, Karen, that everybody?
Maybe they do, I don't know.
No, they have not. We've had the same partner for 6 years. Our manager, we've had 2 different managers, and the line staff does change.
Well, that's why I'm saying we should make sure that occurs. It may just because they have turnover.
Right.
But I think as part of our policy, it should be that no one does the audit more than 2 consecutive years or something. I mean, this is an internal, I think, I'm going to say control. I think it'll be a good practice. If we're not going to change firms, we have to make sure that people who actually do the audit change. They'll do a lot of consecutive years. Steve, would you agree with that? I
think the people that
practice.
I think the people that you're getting a lot of turnover with are the lower level, and they don't have a lot of experience to offer a lot of
just doing numbers.
Yeah, exactly. They're just doing processes. So the in-charge level and the manager level, that's where you're getting your expertise. And I think that changing them, while you may get some different light on it, it also might incur some of these additional costs by having to retrain the manager on the job like that. So there's some pros and cons. I think that their training would provide adequate amount of what am I trying to say? Oversight.
I'm not always interested in every nickel and dime in the audit. I'm interested in that we get a good audit, that is transparent. That's the most important. That the end product is the most important part of an audit, and that it be done. So I'm not necessarily overly concerned if something changes by a few $1,000 or $10,000 here and there to get a good product that the public can have confidence in. So.
Okay, any other questions? Motion?
Motion.
First, second, Jackie. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Karen. Next up is the transferring funds for the circuit court budget. Roger, we're just moving several $1,000s from jury service fees to some Department of Correction fees.
We're moving it for legal fees for Department of Corrections cases. We did it last year. We get reimbursed for it.
Get reimbursed. Moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next up, Harold, revising user fees for the use of countywide trunk radio system.
Good morning, everybody. I'll be as brief as I can about this. As you all know, we have the new radio system due to come online next year. that will be taking the place of the existing system that's been on the line for 18 years. And one of the things we've been looking at in conjunction with the new system is the user fee that was originally established about 18 years ago for local agencies that use our system. And we are looking at, obviously, there's a monetary benefit to the county by charging a fee, but there are a lot of non-monetary benefits that we gain by having more local agencies use the system. It makes for that whole interoperable communications to work that much more smoothly. It also allows us to derive a lot of more benefit out of our system. The more users that are on it, the more we're getting a return on our investment. So essentially, we've been recommending, we were fortunate to have an opportunity to talk with the speaker, some other board leadership earlier this summer to present this concept of discontinuing the fee, looking at, again, the pros and cons of continuing to assess it. Obviously, it provides a direct benefit for the current agencies that use the system if we no longer incur that fee. We have Frankfurt, Manhattan, New Lenox, Homer Glen, Rockdale. Also, the Forest Preserve District is about 42% of our fee income right now. So I know it's not exactly out of one pocket into the other, but it's fairly close. So in essence, we're making this a suggestion to discontinue that local user fee going forward.
And I think this is a good thing. We keep having fees come here anytime we can eliminate something. It's not a big piece of money, but what it also is going to do, we're going to be asking all of the people that are involved to get new subscriber units. So this may help them a little bit with the cost of getting those as well.
Right, that's not something we're providing for those agencies. They have to make that investment in mobile and portable radios. And it really costs us the same to run the system, whether they're on it or not. So it's not as though we incur additional costs by having them on. The system is up and running for our own purposes regardless.
Jackie.
So I'm just wondering if we're going to eliminate a fee, and that's not a bad thing, why we had one to begin with. What was the rationale 18 years ago? Jim, you're our resident historian. What was the reason? I can't recall, because I was on this committee. Yeah.
Because we could.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, and, you know, well, let me say that, not only could
what did we do with the money?
Not only could we probably needed it at the time. I'm sure there was, everybody agreed that there was a justification for the fee to offset the cost for everything.
And so we used that money to help pay off the system, or we used that money for other things? Or?
The fees right now just simply go into the corporate fund. They're not earmarked in any
so they're used for whatever.
Almost all fees go back into the corporate fund.
No,
it eventually gets reallocated, I think, for the intended purpose.
I just wondered if we charged a fee, you know, that made sense, like had we put it in a reserve fund, like we're talking about doing with maintenance, would that really have paid for the new system that we just bought?
Well,
I don't know.
I agree that, you know, I didn't think monies get appropriated eventually for the intended use, but I wouldn't disagree that it could have been put into a dedicated fund for ultimately replacing the system.
I ran some rough numbers, and if you look at what it costs us to build the new system, the initial infrastructure investment, if you look at what it costs us to keep the lights on, just maintaining it, operating it, if you extrapolate that out over 10 years and look at what we generate in fees, the fee revenue amounts to about 8 to 9% of our overall cost. So it's just not a significant factor in the scheme of things, at least as far as running the system. I realize any revenue is important, but I think in this case, the non-monetary gains can outweigh the monetary gains that we see in this case.
And I might point out, my understanding is these new systems don't really become obsolete. The old systems.
It's definitely different because of this open standard. So we're not, if we buy a proprietary system and then 8 years from now that manufacturer says we're going to stop supporting this proprietary system, that leaves us in a different environment. With the open standard, it changes that environment a little bit. So not quite as bad.
So we should get more life out of this system.
I think so. We got, well, Ed and his staff have eked this one out for 19 years, so we got a lot of mileage out of it.
City of Joliet replaced those. Seems to me like this yesterday, by the way.
So the motion would be to eliminate.
Which I was drafted up in a resolution.
Motion? Second, Jackie. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next up, that was the request to create a capital equipment replacement fund. We already talked about that. So next we have a discussion of the budget. If we have additional questions in regards to the budget. On the revenue side, it's not on the expense side, it's on the revenue side. So we'll be talking about the expense side on the 18th.
And Lana's passing around a revenue roll-up.
New papers? Or just a reprint of the book?
Yeah, it's the roll-up of the corporate revenue.
Pages 1 through 9.
Oh, my God.
I think I like my book.
Same thing.
Everyone has the packet. So we'll go through revenue by category. The first column shows the category account number, the account title, the 2015 actual, the 2016 adopted budget, and the 2017 recommended, and then the change in dollars and percentage, and then the last column is the comment. So first category is property taxes. You'll note our actual 2015 was 65 million. Adopted 2016 was 67 million. Recommended for 2017 is 72 million. Difference of 4.9 million. That includes the increase for new property and also the moving of the increase from the PVC levy.
Sean, I have a question there.
Sure.
Last year we discussed the actual levy, the levy with new construction, the levy with new construction plus the CPO.
CPI.
CPI. What is the, do you have the numbers on those?
For CPI?
Well, I'd like to know what the levy would be without new construction first. I see what the levy is with new construction. What was the levy with the CPI?
Well, the CPIs, we didn't take the CPI.
Yeah.
Last year we did not.
No, we didn't take
We are not this year.
We just took the new property last year.
So what would the levy without new construction?
I don't have those numbers available.
No, we got about
that would be about, yeah, about 70.
1.8 and it's just 70.
Yeah, we have the 1.8 and then we also have the increase of the PVC. So if you back those two out.
What is the increase on the PVC?
That's 3.5 million.
This is moving.
So that's just basically moving it up into the corporate.
No, it's all in the corporate.
I guess my question is and just clarify this for me, 7.5% seems like a large increase on the levy.
Well, the reason for that increase, keep in mind, if we're taking new property, so that would be.
But we took new property last year.
You should be telling the aggregate levy with all the levies involved.
Right.
The difference versus is looking, so if you add up all the levies from last year that are in there with the health department, what was it versus.
But this is just the corporate.
I understand, those levies are within the corporate.
Yes.
But I guess, I mean, I'm just trying to clarify it for you.
Jim, are you saying it's not
There's an
7%?
aggregate, there's an aggregate.
No, it's not.
Right.
No.
That's what you're saying.
Right, but it is the 1.8 million was up to,
Well, last year on 16 we did take new construction and we were at the 67 million. In 17 we're proposing taking new construction as well, so now we're at 72.
Correct. We're taking.
So the 3.5 is the.
Is the PVC, so there's two
Excluded from the
pieces.
increase.
Right.
So
it's moving on a different part of your tax bill, right?
Okay, I understand. I just wanted that clarified. I didn't want to just assume that that's what it was.
Yeah. You're okay with that?
Well,
You're
so
good?
if you're reducing the 3.5, really the increase is roughly 1.5.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is about a 0.7% increase.
Yes.
Because the
Now that we're-
construction's a little higher, but if you look at the last page of your budget, it has it all, the whole recap, compares the last 4 or 5 years. And that's the total levy to the whole county. So, Rashawn, the total will be around 119, is that, do I add again?
What page are you on in the budget?
The very last one. Very last. If you look at total tax that the county's gonna collect for all the funds, where we were at 118.8, it's gonna go up about 200,000 or so.
Yes.
It's going to be about 119.
Right.
And it'll be about 0.8% increase over last year.
Correct.
Very,
Yeah. Yeah, overall.
Yep.
Moving on to the next category, license and permits. You'll note that that went down slightly from 2016. Next category, intergovernmental, I've highlighted a few increases here, which is increases in our sales tax. You'll note there, and this is based on actual receipts and previous year increases.
Rashawn, while you're on that area, the decreases is what I was kind of wondering about. You said that the Illinois Department of Revenue, you got information from them to decrease the replacement tax?
On our replacement tax, and that's based on their estimate.
Is that because they think that the collections are going to go down that much, or is the state making some reallocation of that money?
Normally, Karen, can you speak a little bit to
I
that?
think they just estimate based on their projections. They're not changing the distribution.
Well, they're not changing it.
No. And when we get that replacement tax, it first goes to FICA and IMRF at a percentage, and then the balance gets dumped into corporate. So if the levy in FICA and IMRF are higher, they get a bigger piece of it.
That's
So
what's really happening, I think?
Well, that could be part of it.
Yeah. A portion of that goes to FICA and IMRF, in which you're correct, the larger portion is going to that. So this is the remaining piece.
This is what's left
for
over from that. So
corporate.
that's what I was thinking was happening here. Not that we're going to get that big of a
Not that it's
decrease.
going down.
Right.
And then the next one was the state sales tax went down. I was just curious why that line of sales tax is going down where the supplemental and use tax is going up.
Well, that's based on, if you see our actual, 2015 actual, that went down a little bit, and then also prior year. So based on the 2015 actual, we reduced that a little bit, and could be also the timing that the payments are coming in from the state. So we saw a slight decrease in the sales tax, and then some of these others have slightly gone up a little bit, like the county supplementary tax. You'll note we received $18.6 million in 2015, and the local use and sales tax 2.1.
Okay, so those numbers are purely based on looking at the previous.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Moving on to the second page. So under intergovernmental revenue, you'll also note some other smaller decreases in the Sunny Hill reimbursement. And that's based on and these numbers come directly, just so you know, they come directly from the department, so they were given to us by Karen Sabero and their projections, what they would project. So they're uncertain with the new program for Medicaid and Medicare, so they're uncertain how that program will affect the state of Illinois payments. So there's a reduction, 12.5% reduction there. And then some other small increases for sheriff's fees. So overall, small increase for intergovernmental. Sure.
Karen's here. Explain a little bit about what those decreases are.
Is Karen here? Karen?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Can you give us a little info on the
reimbursement.
decreases in the rate on reimbursement? Does that have to do with population?
Well, it's a kind of a marriage between our reducing our...
Population decrease?
Yes.
That's right.
And state, of course, jockeying with the Medicaid rate at this point. The state has not come out and said, this is what we're doing yet for all the different nursing homes. It's all based on the MDS reimbursement rate also. So we're waiting on, just like every nursing home in the state of Illinois right now is waiting for that information from the state.
But we are going to see a reduction because we have less population.
Absolutely.
As well, so our cost should be.
But you're also going to see a reduction in all costs across the board.
Right.
Yes.
And that reflects under charges for services, what you'll see.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
I might be skipping ahead, but on this delinquent taxes, the very last item, the very last item, can you explain that one, the INT delinquent taxes? There seems to be like a huge discrepancy, or at least I see that. Same area, just below the nursing home, just below Sunny Hill. Yeah, I mean, like we collected the actual 1.5, then we budgeted for 3.8 in 2016. Again, year to date, I get more money might be coming in, but we're still recommending 3 million for this next year when we only got 1.5 in 2015. So I'm just, what does that mean? Why is there such a huge difference in those numbers?
Well, it's based on the delinquent taxes. That's when someone has to pay their property taxes. So it's based on, you know.
This is the money we get from the tax sales.
Yes.
Everybody's paying their taxes.
So that,
I got it. Okay, that's, I just was wondering.
What else? Anything else? We can move along.
Timing of the sales.
We don't set the sale.
Gotcha.
what Karen said was the timing of the sale. We don't set that, the treasurer does.
Gotcha.
So that's why you can see it a little bit more. All right, under charges for services. Slight increase in the recorder fees and revenue stamps. Next page, a little decrease in our land post fee, and that's based on our 2015 actual. Circuit clerk fees and earnings. This number comes directly from the circuit clerk, so there's a little decline there, and that's based on 2015 actual. And then again, below Sunny Hill, you'll note decreases there, and Karen just explained that. And then the last one, in which Jackie asked about our delinquent interest on delinquent taxes, there's a decrease there. So overall decrease for charges for services of $2 million. And then below fines, slight decreases in the adjudication, overall increase of $25,000. And then under forfeits, slight decrease in foreclosures, the number of foreclosures is down. And then the last page, we have our interest. In 2015, we realized interest in corporate, that went up a little bit. So this number came directly from our treasurer's office. That increased for 2017. And then rents and royalties, that decreased a little bit because First Midwest We'll be moving out of the First and West building.
Yep.
And then the last few categories, other financing services, the transfers in and transfers for FICA and IMRF both all match the expense outside, which we'll get into. And then the other just miscellaneous revenues. So an overall increase in revenues, which were estimated very conservatively, was about 1.5 million or 0.8% increase.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Rashawn. Karen, increasing appropriations Fund 314, Series 2016 bond proceeds budget.
That is the fund that has the proceeds from the recent bond issuance, and we want to start spending that to pay our bills and reimburse the capital fund for some of the payments we've made recently. I do have to go back and check the timing of that, because I know we had an intent ordinance, and I'll have to double check how far back before that we can go. So we'll go back and we'll capture as much as we can and pay it out of bond proceeds.
Sounds good.
These are soft funds.
Yeah, yep.
And the 12 million is just a grip down here. We don't really know what we're going to spend in the next 2 months, so we figured that would cover anything we can reimburse ourselves for, and then the upcoming expenditures.
Okay, any motion on that?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
I have a question. Karen, were you going to change that this is going to be under county board, or is that going to be a further discussion?
Whatever the pleasure of the board is. In the past, the bond proceed funds have been under the signature of the county executive. If you prefer, this is kind of a different animal, that these expenditures are coming through the capital committee for approval. I can certainly change it at this point before we start processing any payments.
Yeah, just bring it. Yeah.
So the payments will still come through, but you're okay with the way it's set up?
This is set up under the direction of the county executive.
Oh, I thought we were doing it here.
So you want to change to county board?
Right, yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Because the county executive still has to recommend payment along with.
Well, and I think the difference is it's coming to the capital committee for approval. In the past, that didn't have to happen.
Right.
The finance director would have, when Paul was here for the ADF, he would approve the bills and then they get paid. But we had the PBC involvement, so the board's acting in that role now, so
Okay.
so the resolution needs to be changed then. Okay.
Did we
Oh,
move on
I'm
it?
sorry.
Did we move on it?
I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay, so, next, authorized contribution to OPEB.
We budgeted in the 2016 budget to contribute $1 million. Our practice is that we wait till the end of the year, make sure we have the funds available. I would make the recommendation that we make that contribution. If you approve it, it'll happen in the month of November. And I believe for exec committee, Brian McDaniel's bringing forward a policy in the future that maybe we would contribute at the beginning of the fiscal year instead of at the end. So that'll be a different discussion.
Yeah, we're talking about changing it maybe even quarterly,
Right.
move some money, but for right now, we
But this
need
is for
to
current year, yes.
move to move this money.
I missed the why.
That'll be all in
It's
that
a separate
discussion. Yeah, we'll have that discussion.
Okay.
Right now, it's just.
So real quickly, it's a better investment strategy.
That's what I.
So it's like cost.
So he'll give us the breakdowns on it and show why. All right, so we have moving second, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, now we can run through these pretty quick if everybody cooperates.
I can quickly explain. Abating the bonds means we're taking the funds for next year's debt service payments and we're putting them in the debt service fund. That action, once approved by the board and authorized with an ordinance, then goes down to the county clerk who stops them from being added to the levy. All the bonds issued by the county are general obligation, alternate revenue. So they default to the tax levy if we are unable to pay them. We have never had the intent of that happening, which is why we pledge alternate revenue sources, and we pledge them at 1.25 times what our debt service is. So this is just a practice that we do every year. We probably need to formalize it with a policy. But the practice is in November, I come forward, and the funds have already been moved. I have the authority to do that in the budget. So this is just finalizing this step so they don't get added to the levy, which we are setting this month.
Okay?
Any questions?
So basically, if you added all this up, every one of these, like 5, that's the amount of money that we're gonna pay, not using property tax.
We pay all our debt service, not using property tax. This is 1 year at a time.
Right.
So we're saying the debt service that's due in 2017, we already have the money set aside. The amounts that are shown here is what's outstanding on those original debt offerings.
Right, that's right.
But we can only do it 1 year at a time. We can't do it for the whole year.
Okay.
That's not what we're paying, what's listed there, that's totally due.
Right, that's outstanding principal.
20 years, right, that's everything.
All right, we're ready to run through these. First, we're gonna abate taxes levied in tax levy year 2016 for year 2017, pay debt service of 1.990. First and second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Tax levy 2016 for 2017, pay debt service of 79. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 13.
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 14. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 15. Moved. And seconded by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 16. Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 17. It's different. Yeah, it's done. It's different. Authorize the county executive to execute necessary documents for the delinquent tax program. Moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Any other new business? I don't think there could be any other new business. We have no. Any public comment? Any public comment? No public comment? I have no other reports. We don't have executive session, so motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.